Hey everybody, welcome back to Spearfactor. I have today's guest, Mr. Glyn Sadler. Um, Let me just tell you a little bit about Glyn. He rode across the Atlantic. Enough said. Like there doesn't need to be any more said than that. And he also spearfishes. But I wanted to have Glyn on the show to cover a little bit of his background. He is a military guy, and then we're going to talk a lot about mindset and his experience and how things transition over into prepping, talk about his rowing and rowing and spear little, I guess, practices or adventures that he plans to do, and dive into everything kind of that is unique to him and his side of the world. So, welcome to the show, Glenn.
Thanks, Brett.
Yeah, thank you. All right. So, Um, first thing I do want to talk to you a little bit about, we had already kind of discussed it, but uh, I wanted to get you to enlighten a little bit about. We were talking about the online course that you took, and you had said that the thing that you really liked about it was that you and I kind of have the same mindset as far as like shooting fish and taking ethical shots and treating fish with respect. And then, among some other things, but um, you said overall it was a pretty good course, and I'm really glad to hear that because, like I had told you before, it's like you think you have this course, you put it together, and you think it's great, but nobody really cares or likes it or whatever it is, right? You may be the greatest thing living in your own mind, I guess, So,
No, well, I definitely really enjoyed it. It's always good to hear another perspective from an experienced Spiro, and it was good for me to sort of realise that I wasn't the only one thinking on the same lines as you're saying about the ethical shots and things like that, but also cool to see some of the other stuff that's going on out there in terms of the environments you guys are spearfishing over there, completely different to the UK. The size of spear guns that you're using for the large pelagic fish, as well as having to contend with sharks and stuff like that, which we don't have to. But it's cool, just sort of, how would I sort of deal with that in my own mind? Yeah, well worth the money to take it for sure.
I appreciate that. It's always good to have feedback, good or bad, just to figure out ways to improve things and making sure it's on the right track for people that they can learn is the biggest thing. But I don't want to turn this into an infomercial, so we'll just jump right into it.
Yeah,
But so we were talking before, and you are in the UK, England, correct? Like proper,
yeah. So
and
yeah,
you
so the United Kingdom is split into England, Wales, Scotland, and Northern Ireland. I live in North Yorkshire, which is in England, but I tend to spend most of my time spearfishing in North Wales, particularly the northwest of Wales, the place called the Glyn Peninsula, spelled with a double Lyn, and the double L makes it's Gaelic like a cl sound. Yeah, the Glyn Peninsula, northwest Wales.
So when you're diving there, what are the conditions like there at that peninsula, and why do you choose that spot?
So I've been coming here for the last 20 years. It's a nice place to sort of holiday, and I've been sort of snorkeling the peninsula for quite some time, but I've never looked at spearfishing until the last 5 years. And so if the peninsula itself, as it stretches out into the Irish Sea, it does catch a bit of the Gulf Stream that comes up around the west coast of Ireland and Scotland. And yeah, the fish are quite prevalent around here: sea bass, pollock, um, sea bream, mullet, things like that, as well as all your flatfish species. But the peninsula itself is quite a cool place to spearfish because you've always got options because it is a finger of land that stretches out east to west. It's a series of beautiful sandy bays with shallow waters, but then you've got rocky cove after rocky cove with some drop offs and things like that. And because it's east to west, you've got choices. If you've got northerly winds, you can head onto the south coast, and it's literally chalk and cheese. It'd be choppy to the north, but but nice and sheltered to the south, and vice versa. So there's always options on the peninsula, and I would say it's similar to the southwest coast of England, Cornwall and Devon, which is the sort of most prominent place for spearfishers in the UK. And it's certainly getting. I've seen more spearos up here these last few years than I have before, so it's definitely getting more popular. Must be all the videos and pictures I'm putting on Instagram. I'll start keeping a few PBs to myself, I think.
Yeah, yeah. Is that a common thing that you hear in the UK, or as far as like people saying, hey, you're blowing up spots, you're like exploiting areas, like keep that stuff to yourself? Do you ever get
A little
comments like
bit.
that?
Yeah, a
Yeah.
little bit. I mean, on the sort of Facebook groups and things like that, UK Spearos, if anybody puts up a picture of them holding a fish near the spot that they caught it, they tend to sort of blur the background, which kind of ruins the picture a bit, really. I'm thinking, just take the picture somewhere else of holding your fish up. But I think it's still such a young sport in the UK. I'd hesitate to sort of estimate how many. You're probably talking 3,000 to 5,000 people around Britain doing it, maybe a little bit more. But it's still young, and there's still plenty of space, and there's enough fish out there for everyone.
Yeah, I was looking at the spot that the peninsula you're diving on, and it looks like there's a lot of little small towns, but it's
Yeah,
pretty rural for the most part.
yeah, yeah. It's very isolated. Yeah, it's the further west you go, and it's what draws me even more. I can go to a cove, and I could spend all day there, and there won't be, because a lot of it's quite difficult access as well. There's no like steps to get down to some of these places. You're having to literally sort of climb down rocks and cliffs and things. You can spend a full day there, maybe see one or two people walking dogs, along the cliffs or whatever. No phone signal, even better. Just you can just literally switch off from everything, and all you've got is the sound of nature and the sea, and yeah, it's wonderful.
It sounds pretty special. Yeah.
Yeah.
What are the targeted species for you guys?
So predominantly, I think sea bass is the main target for most people, just because I think of its the taste. It's they call them bars of silver over here. I don't know if you guys have something similar, but then you sort of go down the ranks. You've got your pollock, mullet, then all your flatfish species, as well as bal and wrasse, things like that. We do get sea bream, although not as much up here in the northwest, and then triggerfish as well. Yeah,
You said wrasse before when we were talking
yeah,
was kind of controversial. Can you
yeah.
explain that a little bit? Yeah.
So it's I think it's just because the fish tend to hang around on the same spot. They sort of have their part of the reef or their particular rock, and they'll sit around there, and they don't tend to scoot off when you're coming up, and they will just literally just sit there. So they're quite an easy target, but nevertheless, they are to some people they're quite tasty fish as well. I think Daniel Mann did um, a, a sort of video for Noob Spiro guys when they did their recipe book about eating sashimi with bal and wrasse. So I have shot them in the past. And yeah, I think they taste just as good as any other fish. But sort of seeing the comments, leave them alone. They've just got these big puppy dog eyes, and and I suppose if you do take that wrasse, then that bit of the reef has lost one of its fish for sort of cleaning the other fish and things like that. But yeah, that's maybe why they're a bit controversial.
Yeah, I could see that. We have similar stuff, like different things like that. We have wrasse species as well. That's like
Yeah.
sheep's head, California sheep. That doesn't it it gets people fired up every now and then. They do taste
Well,
delicious, but yeah.
yeah, it's like I say, nobody posts pictures of them holding up a big bal and wrasse on the sort of spearfishing Facebook pages. I think they would literally get hammered with the comments for sure. Yeah, bless them.
Understand. So your background, even before you were rowing across oceans,
Hmm.
um, which we're going to get into that because,
Yeah.
yeah. Wow. That's still fucking baffling to me. Yeah, that's awesome. So you went in the military at
Yeah,
17
yeah,
and in 1999, pre 9/11.
yeah.
Um, what was the motivation behind that?
So as we sort of discussed, my father was in the military, and I grew up around the military. I was actually born in Germany because my dad was based out there, and so I sort of knew or felt that I wanted to join the military. When I got older, I was in the air cadets and things like that. So I just love the idea of being part of a group and a team in a military environment. And then my friend who always wanted to join the Marines. He'd gone on about it at school the whole time. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to join. I think he he was certainly fit enough and mature enough, but I think he had something wrong with one of his eyes, so he wasn't able to join. But because he'd gone on about it so much, it must have planted a seed in my head. And when I looked into it more, I thought actually this being part of an elite fighting force, it does appeal greatly to me because um, it was so difficult. It's one of the longest infantry training um, sort of regimes in the world. 32 weeks basic training, just to get your Green Beret. And the last 6 weeks of the training in the Marines is referred to as the Commando phase. So up until that point, you're just a sort of Royal Marines recruit. Um, and then the last 6 weeks, when you do the Commando phase, you do various tests to sort of earn your Green Beret, and they put you through your paces. You do some the particular tests, which I think is an endurance course, which is like a 2 mile assault course in through tunnels and bogs and water and stuff like that, followed by a 4 mile run back to camp, carrying 21 pounds in your weapons. So it's over 30 pounds. Then you must be able to shoot at a target. Everything must still be working, even though you're covered in absolute. So the next one is a 9 mile speed march, which must be completed in 90 minutes, carrying 21 pounds in your weapon. And you must be fit enough to fight a battle at the end of that as well. And then the next day you do a Tarzan assault course, which is just like a assault course on steroids. Basically, you're 30 foot up in the trees, doing various different obstacles and things like that. And I think you've got about 12 to 13 minutes to complete that, and that's a real absolute lung buster. And then the last one is a 30 mile run essentially over Dartmoor, which is one of our sort of main training areas in South Britain, and that's carrying sort of 60 pounds, and you've got like 7.5 hours to do it. But once you get to the end of that, you've won your Green Beret. So there's not many people fail that one because it is just the end is almost in sight. You see, so but yeah,
32 weeks, that's impressive. So
yeah, it's a long
you
time, isn't it?
yeah. So what is like and we're gonna get off topic, I guess, but oh well,
Yeah.
I guess. So what is the base like for us? We just have standard infantry 11 Bravo soldiers,
Yeah.
and then we've got, Rangers, Ranger Battalion, and then
Yeah.
SF, Green Berets,
Yeah.
and then, the tier 1 units. Where when you go into, let's say, the Marines, you
Yeah.
like basic Marine, then
Yeah.
is it Commando?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so you're referred to as just a recruit, um, or I think we call them a nod, um, just because you're sort of like that all the time, just nodding your
Yeah.
head to. That's what you spend most of it. But yeah, I mean, but literally once you pass the commando phase, you do it's just like a reaffirming final exercise and live fire and stuff like that, and that's you straight to front line with a unit. You should be capable of just jumping straight in there and being part of an effective fighting force. Um, so the other equivalent, I guess, over here would be the paratroopers. So you sort of like the Marines and the paras, and then the next level above that would be Special Forces, SAS and SBS,
SS.
which do
Yeah.
tend to sort of, I would say, the majority of their recruits come from those two regiments of the Marines and Paras, although you do get some other guys from other places as well.
Right. And then you have like your SAS 22 or whatever it is, right? The guys
Yeah,
above them and all that stuff.
yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's cool. I do 32 weeks. I'm just like, ugh.
Yeah,
I,
it's a long time. But you do have, if your training falls where there's leave over Christmas or Easter, you get that as well. So it's pretty much you're there for a year, from start to finish,
right.
pretty much. And it's a long time, especially for a 17-year-old boy that hasn't spent too much time away from home. But I think because I was in that sort of military mindset and background beforehand, I settled into it maybe a bit better than some of the guys. And some of the guys do get sent back when they're that young that they're just not ready. They're not grown up enough. It's not that they're not fit enough or anything like that. It's just the maturity level's not there, and they'll come back when they're ready. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, you said the military mindset. Um, what would going through all of that stuff, all the training, would you say were some traits that you learned just by going through all of that?
Well, the sort of the Commando spirit or ethos, if you like, it's drummed into you right from the start, and there's sort of four main characteristics which I still sort of hold myself to today. And I think you don't necessarily have to be a commando to show these characteristics, but essentially it's courage, determination, unselfishness, and cheerfulness in the face of adversity. And that the last two for me are extremely important. I think a lot of people can show courage and determination, but the unselfishness, especially when we talk about the row, in a bit, and the cheerfulness in the face of adversity, that's just something, to put it simply, is sort of laughing at the rain, basically. When things are miserable, being miserable is not going to help situations. So you've just got to switch it around a bit and
Yeah,
laugh at
I
it.
was. It's called like durability, like being comfortable with being uncomfortable.
That's it. Yeah, that's it.
Because it's just like I remember the same thing. It was like 104 degrees outside, sweating, and then
Yeah,
rain came and just dumped on us. And I was just like, well, I guess we get a shower. That's good.
yeah,
Like,
that's it. Yeah,
and it's going to be real humid when this is done. Yeah, it's just funny. It's just
yeah.
comical because there's nothing you
Well,
can do
I
about it.
think the best thing is, especially when you're in with people of the same mindset. It's funny thinking about what they're thinking about. It's the same thing. That, well, if I'm wet, they're going to be just as wet. And you just sort of try and maybe laugh about it harder than they do, just to sort of put them off a bit.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the team aspect is so important, and I think that people that have a background in dealing with teams take it for granted when you
yeah,
start to work with people that don't have that. Like,
yeah,
and you realize
definitely.
there's a lot of people that don't even have a clue as far as like being like, if not me, then who? Like the
Yeah,
selfishness part of it.
yeah,
Um, I love it. No, I agree with you, man. I think the world would be a better place if more people carried themselves with those four factors in mind,
yeah, for sure.
for
I think
sure.
the sort of unselfishness side of things rings really true in the spearfishing world. We used to have what we call the buddy buddy system, because you sort of partner up in pairs. You split right down to a troop. Is split into sections, is split into fire teams, and then right down to your pairs. The buddy that you'll be sleeping with in the poncho, whose food you will be cooking while he's doing whatever. The buddy buddy system works really well in spearfishing and ocean rowing, for that matter. But the thinking about, if you think about the other person, you don't need to worry about yourself, because you know that they're thinking about you as well. And that's something we certainly took on board on the ocean rowing boat, in terms of, well, if there's three guys thinking about me, then I'm good, and we're all thinking about them. So yeah,
Yeah, and I think you look at the objective as a team and not as an individual accomplishment, because you can't have one without the other. Like when you're diving in buddy teams, um, you know, it's the same as like battle buddies, we call it. You know, it's
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah,
I got this, and then you're going to do this, so that the end result is we collectively are going to
yeah,
come home with a fish. Now, who
yeah,
shot it, cool, but whatever, it
yeah,
doesn't
yeah,
really matter. What
yeah,
matters is we are object of effectively going and getting, like, I call it fish Laden, like Osama bin Laden, but like
right, yeah,
whatever the target fish species is, like we've got intel on it. We're gonna build up a, like, and we're gonna fucking hit this thing,
yeah,
and that's the plan. And then a lot of times you go and you don't get anything, and it's like, okay, that's cool. That translates very closely to other things, and it's like, yeah. So, but then when it comes together and we've all played our role, like you cheering through your snorkel that you were saying earlier when you shot
yeah,
your PB, it's
yeah,
like, yeah, it's
yeah,
and it's amazing to do it with your friend next to you, who's, you know, your buddy that's done it every step of the way with you.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
it's awesome. I love that mentality. I think too much with social media, we get, it's me, and promoting
yeah,
me and all
yeah,
that stuff. When,
yeah,
you know, it's really about the team, your group of friends, whatever it is, like collectively, your family, whatever.
yeah,
Um, so, and that's great. I'm glad you brought that up as far as how that translates over into spearfishing, because I've noticed it too. And I'm glad that you said that, as far as the buddy system and knowing to be able to communicate without having to speak, you know, just
yeah,
knowing that your buddy is here doing this because he knows that I'm here doing this.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, so, uh, how long were you in the military for?
So I was in for 9 years, from '99 till 2008. Yeah, I left in 2008.
Okay, and then we were emailing back and forth before it. You were in
Yeah,
the Persian Gulf too.
yeah. So I think I did one tour over there. I think it was the first Afghan, or not Veritas or Oracle. I forget which name. I was on board HMS Fearless at the time, and then I went back out in 2006 on Operation Telic, which was in the second Iraq war, and then out there again to Afghanistan again in 2006-7, I think it was.
Yeah, were you ever
Yeah,
there with the Dolphins when the Dolphins were there? You ever see
that
that
rings
with
a
the Navy's Dolphins?
yeah, that does ring a bell. I think
It was '03, I think.
yeah. What were they doing with? Were they sending them out to find mines and things? Or
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, yeah. That
yeah.
was so. Yeah, we did. I think the Telic one. We did a lot of riverine ops in the mouth of the Tigris, and essentially just trying to control piracy amongst. I mean, amongst the fishermen mainly. They
Right.
were sort of stealing fuel from one boat and selling it to another, and there was a lot of instability in the area. We were trying to sort of put put a stop to that, as well as trying to avoid getting taken out by Iranian gunboats and things like that as well. So
Yes, yes.
yeah, because they'd love nothing more than for us to wander very close to their what they deem to be the border, or a line that's on the chart. Uh,
Well,
they'd be
I'm
straight
assuming,
over.
I don't know if you heard, but the last time I was over there, and they had a riverine boat get surrender, basically, that
All right.
that drifted, engines went dead, one drifted
Yeah.
in the waters, and they, you know, yeah, it
Yeah,
was
they're on it.
pretty.
You've got to give it to them for that. They're on that radar every day,
Yep.
just
Yeah, it's
waiting.
really
Yeah,
funny. I remember I called over the ship, and I was like, "Sir, can you stand off about, 100 meters,
yeah,
whatever?" And he's like, "I hear your request," meaning like, "I hear you. Fuck off."
yeah,
And it's
yeah.
like, "Okay, cool. Well, I did my part."
Well, to be fair, we had a funny incident because we were sat in the big landing craft, which is sort of big enough for a Challenger 2 tank to sit in, or whatever vehicles. And we were just sat out in the middle of the oggin, we call it, in the water, and we get picked up by the smaller landing craft and taken out to sort of touch base with these fishing boats and this, that, and the other. But on there at the time, we had about maybe 50 Marines. And this was our sort of like base out on the water, and we'd had drifted quite close to the Iranian border, and this Iranian gunboat comes out with this double dushka on the front, and they start sort of shouting stuff over the tannoy, and he points this double dushka, and then he cocks it, and as soon as that's like a sort of real act of aggression, to cock the gun, because the next thing you're going to do is you're going to fire it. But what he didn't realise was there was 50 Marines all just sat there with nothing to do, and we all sort of popped up, and so he had like 50 blokes pointing weapons at this guy, and he sort of like pointed his gun up in the air, and then turned around and sort of did one. Fortunately,
Yeah, it's that's hilarious because he's like, oh shit. Yeah, yeah.
It was a bit sad because I think we got told to. We were the grown-ups in that situation, shall we say, and we sort of pulled away from the border. So that's
yeah. I got stories. I'm sure we could talk stories all day long about this stuff. Yeah, like making eye contact. I was like, "Hey, hi, I see you." Just waving to him, like, "Hey,
that's
dude."
it.
Yeah, what's up?
Make sure he's still awake.
Yeah. But yeah. So, very interesting. So, what caused you? Like, you grew up in the military because your father was a military man. What caused you to get out?
So, it's really strange, to be honest. The last Afghan tour I did was quite a tough one, and we lost a few. We'd lost a few guys on that tour, and when I got it was the best tour, and it was the worst tour. It was the best because it was so action packed, and there was never a dull moment. We were constantly under contact every day. I think we were 16 contacts a day was the average, and so I was able to put in to practice the stuff that I'd been training for the last 7 or 8 years, and that was great. To lose the comrades that we lost was obviously not ideal, but when I came back, I was to marry my wife, and that sort of put things into perspective a little bit, because I wanted to have children and stuff like that. And I remember seeing the guys out in Afghanistan, because we were out there for 7 months, and who had children, and they were talking to them on the sat phone, and they'd come back, and so just said their first words, and we're out in Afghanistan, and I just thought, no, that's not. I don't want that for my children, my family. So yeah, and it was quite an intense period, that 2006, 7, 8, 9. There was a lot going on. I think literally we'd come back off a 6-week leave, and it was we were getting ready to go again, back out again. And I just thought, do I really want to do that again? And I'm glad I took the decision. I mean, there's some regrets, I do miss. I miss the camaraderie more than anything. But and so I think that's where I was looking for something to do, and that's where the Ocean Road came in, I think.
No, I really I like that you said that. That's a good segue because the camaraderie, and that goes back to what you said before as far as being selfless and thinking about something other than yourself, because I've been on the other end of that, and it's terrible, and the guilt from being gone, and then it's not. I know exactly what you're talking about with the families and stuff, and
it's a tough life for a married person, for sure.
For sure. I didn't listen to my dad because he always told me to do like what you did. Don't do it later on, but it is what it is. But so I got to ask you from my own personal experience, what was it like when you left, and it's like your whole life you have identified as a commando. This is your identity.
Yeah.
And then you sit in your house and you're like, now nobody gives a shit what you did. What was that like for you?
Yeah, that's a really good question. In fact, it sort of does stir up a few emotions just thinking about it. And like you say, that's who you identify. And the last day, you take that green beret that you've worked so hard for, and you've been told you're the bee's knees for the last 8 years or whatever, you take this green beret off and you to never wear it again, or except on maybe like a remembrance thing. Or so now you've got to, I guess you've got to try and change who you are a bit. And like you said, I really struggled because uh, just struggling to get a job and thinking, well, I was handling all this type of equipment. I was somebody of consequence, that people relied on. I can't even get a job driving trucks. What's going on? Because I think I tried to go in the oil and gas industry, working offshore and things like that, and it was absolutely saturated with ex-military guys who simply had enough of tour after tour after tour, and the money was better and this, that, and the other. And so I really struggled. I must have sent out 300 CVs, and the most part of that CV was my experience of being a Royal Marines Commando, having three, 2 medals and this, that, and the other, to like, no, sorry, we can't use you, sort of thing. It was quite demoralising. So yeah, that was very difficult. And even when I got a job, I went there and it was working in a fab shop, welding fab shop, and they would start on a buzzer and they would stop on a buzzer, and then they would start and they would stop, and it was for 10 hours a day. And I was doing non-destructive testing welds, and I was like, I've made a huge mistake. I think, and I even said to the wife, I think I'm going to have to rejoin. I don't think I can do this. So when you think like, I can live for 7 months in Afghanistan, but I can't live for 7 days in a fab shop in Bolton, where there's, in a factory. It was so difficult.
I'm just glad that you said that, because there are so many people going through the exact same thing. And the reason why I'm able to ask that question, because I can relate.
Yeah.
It's humiliating. It's embarrassing. It's fucking so much stuff where it's like you went 100 degrees in one direction and you're so competent and trusted with this, and you can't even get a job as a retailer. You can't even, and if you do, it's like, this is how you hang this up, or this is how you do this. And then you're like, I have fucked up. Like, yeah.
Definitely.
But and I think that's the big issue, is that you go 100 degrees in one direction and then you get out. And I think it's so important for people's mental health. And this is going to go right into the rowing, is that you got to go 100 degrees in some direction, because the same thing that made you great in the military or even in another profession, that same thing will make you great at something else. But you just got to figure out what it is and go for it.
100%.
Yeah. And so is that kind of what led to the rowing portion of like just doing something, getting motivated to do something above and beyond than just say a job, right? Because a job doesn't necessarily have to define you.
No, I mean, so I mean, it was quite a while between leaving the military and preparing for the road. It was almost, I'd say, 8 years. So, and luckily, I'd found one of my friends opened a gym locally, and I'd served with him in Iraq, and so it was like, brilliant, and he'd found his thing perfectly suited for him. He'd done a bit of close protection work out in Iraq and stuff like that, built up enough money to start this gym, CrossFit Teesside, and he just fell into that, and he just lived it. And it was like, I was looking at him, he was like looking at him as he was in the Marines, because he was a person of importance. He was super fit still. And he was a leader again. He's teaching people various things. So I jumped into that world with him, and I trained there all the time. And that was that became my brotherhood, if you like. I'm used to being surrounded by these young, fit men all the time and having that close bond. There's a couple of ex-Marines there, which was great. But then I think that opened my eyes to sort of looking at something a bit bigger than just going to the gym every week. And it turned out one of the guys who'd been at the gym with said he was going to go and row across the Atlantic. And I was like, that sounds a really cool idea. I said, oh, well, there's a space on the team because one of the guys has pulled out. Do you want to do it? I said, I would love to do it. And so, I sort of jumped straight in, and that team of 4 there, that then became my elite uh, brotherhood, if you like, because ocean rowers, they're not very common. As I think they're probably less common than commandos.
Right. Right. Well, what did you do in between that time to try to like push through that? I mean, did you just suck it up to push
Yeah, I
through
mean,
that?
I had children as well. I had two children, so that takes up a lot of your mental capacity. You don't have much time to think about uh, anything else really, do you? When you're trying to bring kids up. But I luckily got out of the rut that I was in at the start of starting my civilian career, and it was through, as you say, um, remaining the person I was in terms of the professionalism, how keen I was, how enthusiastic, how much attention I had to detail and things. And somebody else saw that, and they were like, "You need to come out of there, and we're going to get you doing." And they sent me back to college. I went and did a higher national certificate in welding and fabrication, and the next thing I'm taking welders through their qualifications and doing procedures and things like that. So sort of a bit of a higher level, and that just gave me more and more confidence to think, what else can I do, sort of thing. Yeah,
Oh, that's good. I'm
yeah,
glad. Thank you for sharing that. No, that's good.
that's all right.
Um, yeah, it's like whatever you're gonna do, be the best at it. Whatever,
Yeah,
like the guys that struggle. It's like if they tell you to clean a toilet, you be the best toilet bowl cleaner in the friggin'
yeah,
world, and let
yeah,
everybody know. And then hopefully you move on to bigger and better things, and
for
everybody,
sure.
if they're good leaders, will see that, right?
But sorry.
Uh, yeah, no, go. So I was just saying that the rowing thing now, though.
Yeah,
So you decided to jump into that. I have a question. Where are those? I don't. Would you call them? What do you call them? Those canoes? Where do they get made?
the ocean rowing boats. So yeah,
Yeah.
they're not. I mean, so let's go back to 2016, which is when we sort of met as a team, and there were very limited options. Prior to that sort of era, you the race was even more extreme in terms of you would design and build your own ocean rowing boat, and obviously, if you're not a boat designer, you've just got to hope that what you've put together is going to be good enough to survive a 3,000-mile crossing across the Atlantic with all the sort of weather conditions and waves that comes across. So yeah, it was even extreme 5 or 6 years before we did it. But at 2016, a company called Rannoch Adventure, run by Charlie, he designed this boat that was fast. It could surf on the waves, and he just went more like super professional about it and started building these boats for people to compete in. And yeah, so there were quite a few options about, and even now, the fleet that leave La Gomera every year to row across the Atlantic, you're talking 50 boats strong, with various nations of teams on board. So yeah, the made in the UK. I think it's the only thing that is, to be honest.
I was thinking about that because I'm like, where do you even get something made like that? As far as fiberglass, what is it made out of fiberglass?
Yes, well, they do fiberglass and carbon fiber as well. Yeah,
Oh yeah, carbon
if you've got the
fiber.
money.
Yeah, it was 4 times
Yeah,
more than yeah.
yeah.
I definitely don't. You got to have some trust in yourself to be going 3,000 or however many 8,000 miles on a boat that I built. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there
I'll
was
be
there
got.
was a story. I think it was a couple of years ago, and it was a father and son team, and they had built the boat together, and they successfully rowed across the Atlantic to. I think it was Caribbean, but that's pretty cool. Building a boat with your dad and then rowing across the Atlantic as well.
Yeah, that's pretty epic. That's something that's friggin' awesome.
I
That's
don't think the dad
definitely
needs to
a.
do anything after that. He's
I
like,
was gonna
there you
say,
go, son. I've taught you everything you need to know. Off you go.
yeah, just a tip my hat to you, sir. That's
Yeah.
incredible. Can you imagine? I don't know you can. The
Yeah.
dialogue, how good that would be for your relationship as a father and son to have uninterrupted days, a month. I guess it was like 30 days, right? Of the
Yeah.
just conversation with you and your son
Yeah.
dealing with adversity and shitty conditions, and what a bond that would bring
For sure. For
to
sure.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's just to talk a bit about the row. So it's I took part in what at the time was the Talisker Whiskey Atlantic Challenge, which is run by Atlantic Campaigns. I think it's now referred to as the world's toughest row, which is fair enough. And it sets off from La Gomera in the Canary Islands, just the west of Africa, all the way across 3,000 miles to Antigua in the Caribbean. And it's been sort of, I think it's been going since, I'd like to say 2010. They've been sort of small fleets doing it. It was every other year, and now it's become more and more popular. It's the old "if you can see it, you can be it" thing. I think it's been sort of televised quite a bit over in the UK. There's always a strong UK contingent, and more people are getting involved in it every year.
Yeah. How much are those boats cost, like to make for you guys?
So, oh God, Charlie's
Just
going to kill me
depends.
if I undersell it.
Sorry.
I think so. Let's say a second-hand one. You can get a second-hand ocean rowing boat, 4-man boat or 4-person boat. You'd probably be looking at over £50,000. So I guess that would be about $70,000, something like that.
Wow.
Yeah. So,
So,
but I mean, what I would say is they're extremely well made. I mean, that's fully kitted out. You've got to think that these boats, when you leave land, you've got to have every bit of kit on board that boat for every scenario you can possibly think of, because you are on your own. Yeah, there's no support vessel to come and help you out mid-Atlantic, and so you need all the navigation equipment, all the the other supplies, the water makers, the solar panels that charge your batteries, and £50,000 is pretty low price to pay to ensure security and
for your
safety
life.
across the Atlantic. Yeah,
Yeah.
but essentially, if you cut this boat in half, you just have two really shit rowing boats, but they would still both float. The just the design of them, the various compartments, they're self-righting. Yeah, they're pretty robust bits of kit for sure.
So that's incredible. So that includes the boat, and you said all the navigation stuff. So you
Yeah,
have electronics on the boat too.
yeah, yeah. That's it.
Oh,
Yeah, and I mean, like I said, the previous years when people were just doing it, building their own stuff, they will have had whatever. But yeah, it's all singing, all dancing, all the kit on there. There's an auto tiller. If you want to do that, you can put an auto tiller on the back. It's a bit of a you can go across just by self-steering. It's a bit obviously more difficult than just because you have to be a bit more switched on all the time. But the auto tillers, they're designed for a bigger yacht that's not traveling only 3 knots. So the auto tillers often wear out, so they end up having to take a few because that rudder's constantly trying to find the direction because you're only going 3 knots. So you just get this the little motor in the thing just constantly running out, and that can be a bit of a pain when you're trying to sleep as well.
yeah. So sleeping, I mean, I'm sure what I want to talk to you about is all the things that you've learned and kind of adapted from military to rowing to being on your own. Like you're from the UK. Most of the guys I know from the UK aren't familiar with the sun as much as us Californians, I guess.
Yeah,
What do you have any tips as far as like what sunscreen did you find that worked well? Like hydration, food,
yeah,
whatever it is, how do you implement that while you're working and trying to sleep at the same
yeah,
time?
yeah. So that's the what you've said there is that's the circle of administration you've got to maintain, and inside that you've got to consume 10,000 calories per day, because your rowing routine of 2 hours on, 2 hours off, in order to remain efficient on the oars and put in a good shift, you've got to consume those calories. The water is made through a water maker, which is obviously powered by the batteries. But if that breaks down, you have a hand pump as well, which is obviously a scenario you don't want to get into. But yeah, you've got to drink at least, I think we were making 40 litres between 4 of us, so that's 10 litres a day, because you've got to rehydrate your food as well as if you need to wash yourself and consume enough water to keep yourself hydrated. And then the sun, yeah, I mean, you're in the Tropic of Cancer. As soon as that sun comes up above the sun, this beautiful sunrise, you think's amazing. As soon as it shows its full face, bang, 30 degrees straight away, and that's you for the rest of the day. And I'll, you know, my nickname in the Marines was Snowy, because I am so white, and I struggled. White hair, white eyebrows, pale skin. I struggle in the sun. So for me, it was factor, cover everything up. Basically, that's what I was wearing. It was long sleeve, everything. Factor 50, that any bits that were showing. And yeah, it was pretty grim for me during the day. I didn't enjoy, but the night rowing for me was amazing. I loved it. I loved rowing at night. It's so cool, and the stars. There's no light pollution out in the Atlantic, and when it's calm and there's no waves, it's unbelievable. You're sort of rowing on this sea of mercury, and you can hear jets flying over at 30,000 feet or whatever it is they're cruising at, because there's just nothing out there. It's amazing.
Wow. So do you have any crazy, like, I mean, that's almost 10 gallons for the US guys, 40 liters a day, 10
Yeah, that's 10
gallons,
gallons. Yeah.
3 guys. I mean, you're drinking. Wow, man. That's like,
It's just constant. You've just got to, because 2 hours, you're sweating for 2 hours when you're
right.
rowing. So you've just got to keep consuming that. And then those ration packs that are dehydrated, everything's about weight. You know, you need to travel as light as you can. You can't carry out the water that you need to get you across the Atlantic, so you've got to make it as you go. The dehydrated rations, you know, they need however X amount of liters to rehydrate those, and then you have to keep on top of making sure you don't let the salt build up in all your crevices on your arms, on your backside, wherever. You know, you don't want to get salt sores. So you just constant. It's just a constant admin nightmare, basically.
That sounds like you're just on the defensive basically the entire time.
Well, so as soon as you leave land, and that's one thing I'd definitely talk about, is that leaving safety and the nice warm showers and the food and stuff like that. The only thing I could put that akin to in my experience was um, going into a battle, knowing that it was about to hit the fan, and just the fear and the, you know, almost physically shaking, because you know you're about to leave this harbour of safety and go out into the big bad blue, and it's all on you guys. You know, it's all on you, and you've been training for this for 2 years, and the pressure is really on. You know, you feel the pressure, knowing that you're not going to get any sleep. You're probably going to be seasick. Your body is deteriorating from the first day. You will start to lose muscle that you're not using, because you never stand up in an ocean rowing boat. You're always sat down rowing, so you start to lose bits. You know, your calves turn to jelly because you're not using your calves when you're rowing as much as your other muscles. And so I lost 10 kilos, 10 kilograms, which is what's that, 22 pounds?
22 pounds, yeah.
22 pounds from, and that was over 39 days. So my body was just, you're in survival mode basically. And I've got some pictures. You just the look at the guys' faces, it just looks like they are in a survival situation. You know, just that sort of look of shock and just trying to get through it, sort of thing. Yeah, it's pretty grim. I'm not selling it to you, am I, Brett? I don't think you're up for this ocean road.
I'm just thinking,
Why?
no, not why. I think I know why. Because
Right.
like every now and then I want to go out and suffer.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
some people say, like cold, tired, and hungry, you know?
Yeah.
And like, for example, it's Memorial Day weekend this weekend. And yesterday I was like, yeah, I'm going to go out and punish myself. Like
Yeah.
just for everybody. Like, I don't care. Just an internal thing. I just want to go out and be in pain. Some people don't understand that. Some people do. I don't know. It, whatever, makes me weird or
Yeah.
whatever. I don't know. But
No, I get it.
why?
I get.
Yeah, because again, it's the whole thing. If not me, then who or whatever. But like, I feel like that gives you purpose, what you're describing, right? To say like what we are capable of as human beings. We don't
Oh
even think
yeah.
that half the people don't have any idea.
No, no.
Um,
We live in such a comfortable life, in the modern age. It's the comfort zone is so big, you know.
right.
Even some of the training that we did when we were going out for a weekend, I would come back from a weekend's row absolutely shattered, and I'm like, how am I going to get through this week's work? I feel done in. But and even then, how am I going to be able to row across the Atlantic? I'm tired after just doing 2 days of rowing. That's because you've been sat in that comfort zone for so long. You forgot what it was like when men used to have to get in a boat and row out to sea to go fishing and haul in, and then row back. That was a day's
Yeah.
work for them. And I'm
It's kind of
struggling to.
no, it's like what you mentioned before in the training, the military training is like we do our road marches, right, or whatever, and it's like some
Yeah,
people road march 20 miles, and then like, or you go out for a jog. Someone goes out
yeah,
for a jog, they come back like, wow, I'm tired. Okay, now you have to fight a war.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
now is when it start, and then so it's like this is just the beginning. And so you think
yeah,
about things like you're doing. I mean, getting back on the subject, I guess, because I'm just like, wow, it's just like, okay, I'm just logically trying to step through how you
yeah,
would combat these situations or how you.
yeah,
So as far as showers go, are you simply just taking a water and or getting that salt off you're talking about,
yeah.
just dipping it and like, or just drenching yourself in the salt
So you
or in the
obviously
water to get the
with
salt off?
yeah with the water being limited, you're cleaning yourself predominantly with like um, disposable wipes, if you like. So you've got quite a few of them on board. You need to sort of do that between shifts and things like that. A wash, you may be looking at washing once a week, having a full body wash with a bucket of water and stuff like that. But again, because the pressure is on all the time and that boat has got to keep moving, if you're taking up a rowing space to have a wash, that means that there's only one person rowing or whatever. So it isn't, everything's done as quickly as possible. Um, and then, wash your clothes maybe once every other week. Yeah, it's grim is the only term I can use. And the sleep deprivation is probably, it's the worst I've experienced, with all uh, tours in Afghanistan and military training, things like that. Not because it was, how to put this, it was harder because of what it meant between, in terms of you had no choice. You've got 2 hours to get all your admin done, and then you're back on those oars. So you've got to get your sleep in as well. But you can't mix that up. You can't go, let's row 4 hours and get 4 hours sleep, because you just won't be efficient on those oars for 4 hours. So you've got to push yourself into this polyphasic sleeping pattern so that you get in many phases of small sleep. So you get an hour, then 3 hours, then another hour. And it sounds like, oh, well, that means you'll get like 6 hours sleep a day. Like, yeah, but it's just not, it just doesn't feel like that. It just feels like you've blinked and then you're back on those oars. And it's an absolute mind bend, because you can't train for that. You could train for like, you'd have to, you have to row an ocean to train for it, if you know what I mean. It's,
Yeah,
you, you can go and do it for a weekend or even a week, but you, what are you going to be like after 20 days, after 30 days? It's just, you just
I
have
was
to
gonna
accept
say
it and
that's a
just do it.
long time. Yeah, that's a
Yeah,
long
it
time.
is. Yeah.
I'm sure that's all scientifically like backed up. That's why you guys do 2 hours of sleep.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's the most efficient way of the whole premise is keeping keeping a set of oars moving in the water at all times. So even when you do your changeovers, you'll only change one person on the oars at a time. So you'd split like the hours, if you like. So um, the guy in stroke will come off, and then an hour later I'll come off, so that there's always two people rowing all the time. So yeah, it's the most efficient way. If you start to push it up to 3 hours on, 3 hours off, they've tended to find that last hour you're just no good on the oars. That the efficiency really drops down, and we ended up having to do stuff like that because, um, uh, just to mention the guys who were on my boat, had myself, Will Quarmby, Duncan Roy, and Fraser Molam, all part of Team Row for Victory. And Fraser had a quite a nasty injury to the front of his shin. I think it was like some sort of compartment syndrome that just meant it was so painful to row that his whole technique and everything just went out the window. So we felt as a team it would be better if he came off the oars for a bit. So we had to change up our rowing routine, and we ended up doing a 3 hours on, 3 hours off, and it was 1 hour on your own, 1 hour with someone, 1 hour on your own, something like that. Whatever it was, it just didn't work. It was really hard to do. So yeah, the 2 hours on, 2 hours off is the dream, basically.
Yeah, and I was thinking your poor friend probably feels like
Yeah.
a crap knowing that like
Oh, it was
sitting there.
tough. Yeah,
Everybody's
tough.
working and you're like
Yeah, tough situation for everybody. But I think it's a testament to the whole team that there were no big issues made of it whatsoever. It was just a case of that. Right, this is what we're going to do. We've got to change it up, get you off the oars for a bit. And when he came back on, he was right as rain. But he would take on things like, well, I'll make the water, I'll cook the food, and do whatever jobs he could do. So he wasn't just sat there, and he certainly wasn't. He was definitely putting just as much of a shifting off the oars, keeping us fed for that, because we were doing that extra hour sort of thing. So yeah, I mean, that's the other thing about an ocean row is it strips you down to your bare bones physically, mentally, and emotionally in terms of how exposed you are to the elements, and how reliant you are on the people that are no more than half a meter away from you. And if any of that falls down, then it's game over. There has been cases where guys have got as far as a couple of 100 miles and they've had to pull in at Cape Verde and they've just called it quits because they couldn't get on. They made terrible decisions. They ended up hating each other's guts or whatever it was. It's got to work, and I think we did a really good job of keeping that team together right the way through, which was great.
yeah, I imagine that could be a reality show in itself if you put the wrong
Oh,
people,
yeah.
you're like
Again,
somebody's not.
and it's
Yeah.
because we didn't all know each other. I knew Duncan knew Will knew Fraser, and we had 2 years to put this team together, and we did quite a few bits in that that brought us closer together in terms of the training, things like that. And you really have to look at that when you think about putting together an ocean rowing team, because it, you know yeah, okay, we had a few daft like arguments on board over niggly little things and stuff like that, but we got over it and got on with it. And I can see how it could just easily completely collapse if there was such inhospitable environment on board that people just. I mean, I think there was a case with one of the American teams where they struggled. It wasn't through anything character wise; it was purely seasickness. I was the same. I've never been seasick. I've been on small boats. I've done all sorts of stuff boating wise. Never been seasick. Never seasick in the training. But the first 5 days, I struggled with seasickness. Anyway, this team they'd struggled with seasickness, and the guy had to get rescued. He'd lost so much weight, and he just couldn't row. He was getting dehydrated, so they came out to pick him up. They sent a yacht out to come and collect him, and so that meant they were down to a 3-man. But when the yacht was there, one of the other guys said, "I think I want to get off as well," and he got off, which left 2 guys, and they could have easily just gone, "Let's call it quits." We've tried. We now got this 4-man boat with all its kit on to row between the 2 of us. But anyway, they stuck together and they managed to row the remainder of the race. As I say, that's latitude 35 was the team. That's an amazing story. The 2 guys that just decided to, fuck it, let's just get this cracked, and they did it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Hell yeah, I like it. I mean, was going back more of the spearfishing stuff, but like with the rowing, well, I guess the food. How are you guys eating like MREs? You're trying to get 10,000 calories a day.
Yeah. It's mainly it's MREs. So there's no fresh food on board really. There's maybe you might be able to get some snacks and things out of it. So I think we had tubs of peanut butter. we were just shoveling that in whenever we got the chance, and
Right.
just high calorific snacks, but MREs essentially, yeah.
Yeah, basically, yeah. Was there what are some things that you learned prep wise, like just for survival or anything, like little tips or tricks that you think could be applicable to spearfishing from this row?
Applicable to spearfishing.
Like the hydration portion? I mean,
Yeah, I mean that's something I've only learned more recently about the um, being hydrated, and equalizing and your breath hold, how it affects that. I always carry a liter of water on board my safety buoy when I'm out there, and I sort of chip away at that. One good idea would be to have a nozzle cover on my drink, because there's enough, and we found it out on the ocean. There's nothing worse than putting a salt water covered drinks bottle to your lips when you're thirsty. It's just not great. So if you can get that covered, that's a bit of a bonus. There's not really much in terms of ocean rowing that translate over to the spearfishing side. Yeah, I think I struggle with that one.
I think the prepping, right, and the things to
Oh,
consider.
preparation. I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
oh God, it's so. I guess, yeah, there is sort of comparables with that in terms of if I was going to prep for an ocean rowing, like even if it was just a training day or whatever, I'd put as much effort into that, what we would call a passage plan. I think you might call that something similar there. And I do the exact same thing for my. I don't call it a dive plan. I call it a hunt plan, because I'm not always diving, so it works out either way. So this hunting plan that I put together, and I will take note of weather conditions, tides, winds, things like that, currents and whatnot, tidal streams. So yeah, there's a lot of preparation. Preparation for the row itself is it's an absolute monster. It's a mammoth task. That one of the biggest cliches in ocean rowing is that it's harder to get to the start line than it is to row the ocean, because we had to raise like £80,000 in corporate sponsorship. We've got this team of 4 guys that have got 4 different jobs, 4 different families, 4 different calendars to try and work around to get the training done, the charitable fundraising events, the buy all the food, get everything shipped, check all the kits work. It's just an absolute monster. You spend 12 days in La Gomera in just pure preparation before you leave on the race day. And Ian Couch, the safety officer, was just like, just take it easy at the bar and just, keep. I know that the stress is high, and I said, but this is not your last 12 days on Earth. And it does feel like that, because you are about to row across this vast open water, and yeah, it just seems crazy, and it does feel like your last 12 days.
Your wife, I was thinking about your wife must be a very patient, understanding, like supportive woman
Oh
for
well,
sure.
she'll fight. Yeah, of course she is. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, she's
She is no.
already the
She's.
spearfishing life style is
Oh
probably going
yeah.
to be a
Well.
joke for her. Like,
Well, no. To be honest, it's difficult, because even now, like today, for instance, I'm looking at like times and tides and things like that. She wants to get down the beach with the kids and things. I'm thinking, well, if we go at this time and get down, and she's like, well, it doesn't all revolve around you. And it's like, well, yeah, but if we don't go there now, then I won't be able to get these 3 hours in. And she's like, well, can we not do something with the kids before? And I said, well, let's do something with the kids. So yeah, she's super patient, and it is sometimes a bit of a source of argument, but not me. I mean, she's actually. It might be worth bringing this up now, but she's actually said to me, "Why don't you go and row the Pacific?" So I don't know what the saying is. What is it? Fool me once,
yeah,
bite me
fool me
once, shame
once,
on
shame
you.
on you. Fool me twice, shame on me.
Yeah, and she's like, well, I obviously haven't put her off, so yeah, look out for an announcement about rowing the Pacific in the future.
It'd be easy to do. It's just Glenn. Real men row the Pacific. I mean,
Yeah, that's
obviously,
right.
come on. The
Yeah,
Atlantic, really? It's the
Well, I
Pacific.
think she's more thinking, well, it's during the summer term when the kids aren't at school, and she could meet us in Hawaii at the finish line. I
Yeah,
think
there you
that's
go.
where her motivation's from, which is fair enough. I get an ocean row out of it as well. So
I'm thinking just stopping along the way at all the South Pacific Islands and diving. Just yeah,
yeah, oh yeah, yeah, that
yeah,
sounds good.
yeah.
Yeah,
But
and just carry on to Eastern Australia after that.
yes, yes, yeah. I might join you on that one. No,
Cool.
no. Yeah, it's hilarious hearing this exact same conversation across the world, in
Oh
my
yeah,
house as well. Like for
yeah.
today, doing 2 podcasts, and hey, what are we gonna do? This. Well, it's not all about you. You know,
Yeah, they just don't understand that it is. Yeah,
they just, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It's like you knew. uh, yeah, you know what an idiot you were. You were marrying me. Like what an idiot
yeah,
you were
I know.
marrying.
That's it.
Yeah,
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 yeah. I
yeah.
haven't changed. So
Back to the selfishness. Like yeah,
yeah,
try to
that's
like.
it. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I need to
I'm
keep
trying to
that
make. I'm
unselfishness.
Yeah, I'm trying to make it a win for everybody. Like if we just change this a little bit, the tide will
Yeah,
work for me, and you guys will go to the
yeah,
beach.
that's
Yeah.
it. Yeah,
Um, that's so great, man. I love it. So back to, oh man, rowing the Pacific. That good lord. So you would go from where, like San Diego or San
yeah. I
Francisco
think
over to Hawaii.
so. There's two races. I think with that there's leaving from the Golden Gate Bridge at San Francisco and or Monterey Bay,
Yep.
and I think over to I think one of the finish lines Waikiki
Okay.
Harbour, is it, or somewhere like that? Yeah,
Yes.
I haven't looked into it too deeply. I just want to. I've given her that. You know, when you buy something and you get like a cool off period before you you can send it back. I'm just going to give it a week as a cool off period just to check that she hasn't changed her mind before I start looking into it too deeply.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Otherwise, it's like all systems go. If we're doing
yeah,
this,
well,
like,
that's it, and it is. It's such a commitment because of the money fundraising involved, as well as getting a team together, and they've got to be so serious. When you commit to that team, it's it's like having a second job and a second family. It really is. Um, it's a huge commitment, and because of the potential dangers out there, you have to take it extremely seriously for sure.
what are ways that you deal with boredom? Like, do you guys
Oh,
talk a
it's
lot or like,
yeah. Well, it's a hard one because it's time to yourself is time you want to be getting your head down. But I mean, it can be quite boring just rowing with somebody, you know. But we would just do daft stuff like, I mean, we had a deck speaker on board and we would play that all day till the battery ran out. And usually, it sounds really really sad. It would be like audiobooks and stuff like that. It would be Harry Potter, typical Brits
right?
listening to Harry Potter, but just whatever it is, that would just be playing in the background. And then we'd also have some other things going on, like the cloud game. Will be so you could find the best shape of cloud that looks like a turtle or a boxer or whatever it is. You know, it's just
Right.
stuff like that. And then um, I don't know, just stupid games, whatever comes to mind.
Yeah.
Telling stories. I mean, you sort of almost don't want to bring out your best stories before the road because you're going to have so much time to be telling them about the time you did something ridiculously stupid and ended up in jail or whatever it was. So
Yeah.
you get to hear about everything. You know each other inside out by the time you get across the Atlantic.
I'm trying to remember when you were going back to spearfishing, like
Yeah,
the rowing. So with your rowing though, you're doing rowing and diving kind of things now, right? That's the big
yeah.
push you want to try to get into. Is that mainly UK centric, like focused around UK?
Yeah, so essentially, I put together this company called Adventures per Mare, and it revolves around ocean rowing and spearfishing. And the way I see it is, I'm going to try and marry these things together. It's targeted mainly at people who spearfish already, but who have that sort of adventurous streak and would actually like to see what it's like to row an ocean or ocean rowing, but survive at sea rowing across a stretch of coastline, foraging, hunting, catching what you cook, and moving on to the next spot. It's just like a hunting holiday, but on the water. But I'm not just going to bring you on the boat and expect you to row. There's so much to go on in the background in terms of packages that I'm putting together for like a learn to row, right from being on a rowing machine through to coming out for taster days with me on the boat, and just there's so much to learn. I think most of the spearers I've spoken to about it are well up for it. And I think there's some really cool packages I can put together. And I'd like to row around the full circumference of Great Britain, which is about 2,400 miles. But you better believe I'll be taking my spearfishing kit with me, because I'll be rowing past some of the best hunting grounds in Britain. With people who I'd like to split it into legs as well, and do stuff like that. So it's a new concept. Nobody's offering this at the minute, and I think I've got my own ocean rowing boat now. It's an older version. It's a Woodvale 4-man boat. It's got a huge cabin in the rear to sort of sleep in, and it's going to be it's going to be refurbished for comfort more than. I'm not expecting to row an ocean in it, but also in the background, if I can get another ocean row done under my belt, then great. I'm going to be in that mindset, and in that I'll be trained for it, throughout the year, ready to go whenever. But that's the way I want to go.
So what makes that area of the UK so good for spearfishing? When you mentioned the region when you rode around, like the one area you're going to go past.
Yeah, well, so the southwest, I think it's Devon and Cornwall, especially. It's warmer. The waters are warmer. They've had tuna down there this year, which is that's good to see. But yeah, the species are just more prevalent. Some of the videos you see of the guys up the Eddystone Lighthouse, which is, I think it's maybe 20 miles off the coast. And it's just the shoals of sea bass down there look unbelievable. Hundreds, thousands of bass. Up here in North Wales, they're just not as prevalent. They're there, but you've got to hunt for them more. So yeah, I think for me, how would you feel about rowing, seeing the coastline of where you live from a rowboat, over however many days? For me, I get to see the whole of my nation, by rowing around Britain and doing stuff like that, which I think is pretty cool as well.
It sounds pretty kick-ass. But you mentioned the tuna. Was those bluefin or were they big eye?
I think they were bluefin tuna. Yeah, yeah.
I've seen videos of guys in Ireland like fishing. You can fish for them and stuff. But
yeah, you need a special license over here. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I saw Daniel Mann get footage of him before doing something. But
yeah, I think I've seen. In relatively shallow water as well, in maybe just a couple of meters, and then this 4-foot fish just go past this guy, and it's just, it looks pretty scary, because obviously we don't usually get stuff like that in Britain.
Right. You're expecting a sea bass, not a sea
yeah, and it's like, what the hell is that? And because they're fast as well, aren't they?
Yeah. So other parts of Britain, we had talked before with some of the pollution issues that they have. Is that why that area, because it just doesn't have a high density of people, so it's a little more maybe clear, more fish?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I think so. We're having a huge problem in the UK at the minute with our water companies just literally dumping raw sewage out into the ocean. They have they have sort of permit to have overflow when there's high rains and things like that. They're allowed to sort of push certain things out. But this year, the last few years, they've just been pushing so much raw sewage into the rivers, and that just makes its way straight out to sea. And if you go around Britain, there's so many big rivers. You got if you on my coast, on the northeast coast, you've got the Tyne, the Wear, the Tees, the Humber, and they're all within like 20, 30 miles of each other, and they're just kicking out raw sewage. And this has only sort of come to my the last few weeks, and I'm just shocked that there are, because at the minute they've been the sort of CEOs and have been receiving huge bonuses and things like that. Well, I know they aren't doing their job. They're pushing out raw sewage into our seas, and I'm literally spearfishing in some of these places that's kicking it out, and it's not on. They need to get a grip of it.
So it's directly going into the rivers.
Yeah.
It's not even, so I've heard of people like they pump it offshore, but to the south of us, Mexico, they have the same kind of thing. It overflows and then just dumps raw sewage right into the and you can fly out of San Diego, look down, and there's a big brown smear poo stain. And you would think with a company with a country like the UK, they'd be more
Well, that's the thing. We're a pretty small island,
right.
And I think that term you use there, you would think. I think that's you would think, and obviously it isn't happening. To be fair, the Yorkshire Water, where I'm from, they have. I mean, it's a start. They have apologised for the state of. There's a lot of infrastructure that needs investing in. They're about to pump 180 million pounds worth of investment in, which just shows you really, how big a problem it is for them. And I mean, Yorkshire Water. I think they did. It was over 50,000 times they pumped raw sewage into our rivers that went straight out, obviously, and that goes straight out to sea. And nobody wants it. The Surfers Against Sewage. We have like the SAS over here, Surfers Against Sewage. They're all over it, and I've been looking at their website and seeing the stuff that's going on, and it just sort of opened my eyes quite a bit. And I think I'd love to, if I did row around Britain, I'd love to take the opportunity, because I'll be rowing past the mouth of every river around Britain, that leads into the sea. I'll definitely be taking some samples for them on the way around, just to show everybody what a huge problem it is, and how much of a grip they need to get hold of it and sort it out. And it's only through, people, I don't want to say moaning, because everybody's got the right to fresh water. It's a human right. And if it wasn't for the fact that you've got Surfers Against Sewage and people like that highlighting it, they'd just crack on and do what they're doing and throw it out whenever they want.
I think that would be a great eye-opening comparison of certain areas where you have such, I'm sure it's just off the chart levels, and then other areas where it's, it'll
be a bit of a roller coaster ride, won't it? Because essentially, going around Britain, you'll be able to see the beautiful wildlife and the coastline and the topography and whatnot. And then also you're going to be seeing how bad some of the states of the water are by taking these samples and demonstrating it. But I think somebody did that last year on a GB row, and they took samples of microplastics, and that was quite damning as well. In certain areas, were obviously a lot worse than others. And that's another problem that I think the world's struggling against, isn't it?
Yeah, the microplastics issues. And it's wild because you've traveled the globe too. We do so much in our own countries, and then you look at the other 90% of the countries, some of the countries you go to, and I'm like, nobody here even, it's not even on the radar.
No, and it's just probably because they're so poor,
Yeah, they're just thinking about survival, right? So they're like,
where's my next? Whenever mine's where I'm going to put this empty plastic bottle, where's my next plastic bottle of drinking water going to come from?
Right, right.
That's where they're at, isn't it?
Yeah, I understand. The thing that kills me is like we're on base, and it's like the amount of plastic bottles that just are everywhere because we're all buying, and you're like, there's got to be some better way of doing this, because I throw away more shit on base than I do.
Yeah. Well, I was out on a patrol, and this young Afghan boy came up to me, and he's like, "Oh, Mister, I'm thirsty. I'm thirsty." So I was like, I went to get a bottle of water out, and he's like, "No," he's like, "I'm thirsty for Coke." And I think that's definitely an American influence on. Because I think the guys would come out of the American bases with all the goods. And we're still us Brits will still be drinking Steri-Tab water and stuff like that.
Some good cup of tea.
Yeah.
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 We got all the terrible, unhealthy for you shit over here. That that's why we're all over. I don't know, out of shape and overweight or whatever. I don't know.
Oh.
I don't know. Oh man, I tell you what, it was a lot of fun to work with some of the British guys and uh, and learn. I mean, really about Britain. Like for example, I didn't know. You know, growing up, you all see Robin Hood and all that. I didn't
Yeah.
know like Sherwood Forest is like an actual real place.
Oh
So
yeah.
on the British ships, you know, you guys have bars. Well, we don't have that on the U.S. ship, so
No.
we're at the bar, the British ship. I've had like two
Yeah.
birthdays on the British ship. The Ponce, or not the Ponce, but the Lime Bay and the Cardigan Bay, and
Right.
having some beers with this guy, and he's like, "Yeah, every day I take my dog for a walk around Sherwood Forest, you know." And I'm
Yeah.
like looking at him like, "Are you fucking with me?" I'm like, okay, Robin Hood, dude, I get it.
Yeah.
Ha ha ha,
Yeah.
And he's like, no, it's a real
Yeah.
place. And then the other
Yeah.
divers I was with, British divers, they're like, yeah, you got to go to, so and so for Fleet Week because the ratio of like guys, these are all younger guys. I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
Mary, that ship has kind of sailed, but like, they're like, oh, this and this, and like learning all about like Robin Hood and just, um, the
Yeah.
terms for the UK guys, like it was dark. I were on a ship one night, and on a boat, smaller boat, we had left from the ship, and the guy's like, "You want chicken nugget?" I was like, "What? A chicken nagu or something?" I didn't know what he meant. I was like, "Sure, fuck it, I'll take it, whatever." And it was
Oh, chicken nugget.
chicken nugget, yeah. And he said something, and I'm actually friends with him to this day on Instagram. Super good guy. We were on the same rotation. I kept running into him every time we were over there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was just cracking up how and listening to Scottish guys and guys from Wales and like
Yeah.
going, we both speak the same language, but I can't understand a fucking thing you're saying. And it's
Yeah.
funny because it's like, okay, like the Scots, like the really there was a sergeant major, Scottish sergeant major. He had to like slow it down for us Americans because
Yeah.
I was like, wow, I can't. It's amazing we speak the same language and I can't understand a lot of,
Yeah.
So I did enjoy those learning curves. That was a lot of fun with those guys.
Well, I think what's cool is our history is also your history as well.
Yeah,
English history or whatever. It's yeah.
yeah. It's funny. It's like your brother, your long lost brother, and you just give each other shit. But
Yeah.
when it's funny when you go to these places, you're like the same dude that's in this unit would be the same guy in this unit here in America. It's like it's
Yeah.
all the
Yeah.
same
Yeah.
guys, like
Yeah.
the
I know what you mean.
Canadians
Yeah.
Canadian guys I worked with, the even the Turkish guy, all the guys, different guys I worked with, it's all the same type of guy, you know.
Yeah.
And I say
Yeah.
guys because it was all guys, but like all the
Yeah. Yeah.
same type people. So it's just funny, like same
Yeah.
meatheads, same whatever. I don't know. It's just
Yeah.
hilarious. Yeah.
Just a different accent, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. And
That's it.
so,
Yeah.
yeah, we always try to have a good time no matter where we're at. Doesn't matter. Always try to
Yeah.
find humor in something. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I did enjoy that. So the sewage thing, that's kind of what I never knew. That's a good thing we're talking with you. I never
Yeah.
knew the sewage issue in the UK. You would think just with the how long UK has been around, like they'd kind of have it.
Yeah.
You just don't ever think about it.
Yeah, I think we have a bit of a problem when it comes to investment in infrastructure over here. We don't like to invest in anything that won't see a return longer than, like, if it goes over 5 years, it'll just get put back.
Right.
I know on the continent, in France, places like that, they'll invest in stuff that they won't see fruition for 30 years and stuff like, they're quite happy to do that. But we have a bit of unless it's complained about, and we don't like to complain in Britain. We're very polite and things like that. So if we're not complaining, then it obviously doesn't matter. So when we do complain, that's when it's
People
serious,
listen.
and usually it's a bit too late as well. Hence why, I mean, Yorkshire is the biggest county in Britain, but it's not particularly large sort of area
Population.
on the map. Yeah, large population, but they're having to put £180 million into sorting out the problem of so they don't stop, they don't dump sewage into the rivers. That's something's gone wrong somewhere, hasn't it? So yeah, and obviously they're not the only ones. I think I had a look at North Wales, and they were worse. They were kicking out 80,000+ times last year. So
Wow.
we definitely need to get a grip of it. And I'm sort of afraid to look too deeply, because I do tend to hunt, especially for mullet and things like that, in the mouths of rivers and things, because they're quite capable of swimming in seawater and freshwater.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's a shame.
The tough thing about diving there, I guess, the visibility would be garbage if it's been raining. That's for sure.
Yeah, you do get that. You get this sort of like haze where you can see the waters mixing.
Yeah.
It does get pushed out, but it's doable. It's we'll tweet take anything in North Wales visibility wise. If you've got half a meter, we're good to go. It's just we take what we can get. It's good. Sometimes we get at the minute we've got a bit of an algae bloom, the May algae bloom, and that can make it difficult. I personally like to have low visibility. I think 2 to 3 meters I'm happy with, because it makes me more. I think it's easier to hunt. The fish come closer, especially like the likes of sea bass. They're always very interested in what you're doing, and if they can't see you, they'll come closer for a look, and obviously it makes them an easier target for me. So yeah, I quite like 2 to 3 meters visibility. I mean, it's nice to see 10, 20 meters, just because you get to see the underwater environment in its glory, and there's nothing better than seeing a big shoal of bass or whatever going past you in the stringy weed, and you can see everything's going on. Is amazing.
Yeah, I share similar. I think it's easier in bad viz. You get closer, easier shots.
Yeah.
But with all your experience, right, in bad viz, um, what do you think are some tips that you could give to be more to be a better diver, a better hunter in bad viz?
I think it helps if you. So I've spent the last 5 years sort of mentally mapping the terrain, especially quite close to shore. And I think it helps if you know where the rocks and things are. I don't like to dive where I can't see the bottom, but if I've been there before and I sort of know, then I'll come down to it. I'll pull myself down from a shallower spot into it, and then I guess it's a case of just, for me, I'll just lay up in ambush and wait, and if I don't see the fish, then I'll move on. But I think the other thing is a short spear gun is better. I'm looking to go right down to 45 centimeter. I've got a 75 centimeter gun at the minute. I'm looking to shorten that, just because I've come so many scenarios where the fish have come that close. I can't. Yeah, I know that if I try and swing my gun around, it'll spook them. So I'm having to keep it in close to me to then bring it out. And I think a shorter gun will just give me a bit more manoeuvrability in poor viz. And then just be a bit more extra careful with your diving and stuff. Make sure you keep. I tend to, if the viz is that bad that I can't see the phone going down, I do tend to dive down with my hand, just so in case I get surprised by a rock or something like that. So it gives me that chance to avoid it or grab hold of it on the way down.
I'm glad that you could share that with us. Yeah, I dove a lot in that stuff too, and for a minute I dive down. I try to put my gun maybe just above my head, so that if that hits, right,
Yeah,
but what you're saying, it's not your dome crashing into a rock or something. But
that's it. Yeah, and
yeah,
just be slow. I mean, I try to be slow, as slow as possible on my descent now, as slow as I can. Um, uh, just to not spook the fish, and the same coming back up as well, slow as I can.
yeah. Oh, good stuff,
I'm,
man.
I'm
Good
not
stuff.
I'm not here I'm not here to spear you. That's the message. That's the vibe I'm putting out.
Yeah, let's be
I'm just an
friends.
observer.
I'm
Yeah, I'm
not.
just an
Yeah,
observer.
I'm not interested in you at all. And then shoot you. Yeah, done.
Yeah,
Um, no, good stuff. Question about back to the rowing thing about the UK.
yeah,
I'm thinking about this, and to me, the possibilities of what you're trying to do are endless. And I think of certain people that I've actually had on the show before, like Ollie Craig in New Zealand. I don't know if you know Ollie Craig.
yeah, yeah,
That whole adventure thing where we're going, taking a small boat to
Yeah.
a stretch of coastline, bringing all of our crap. We're camping there. Then we're going out and doing it. It's like,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
feel like with what you're doing with the rowing, the boat itself would be would be tough logistically to get it from point A to point B. But
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, if you did something like, hey, we can row through Indonesia and spearfish along the way, or
Yeah.
row around this island or New Zealand, which is kind of a similar climate, it seems like, to the UK
Yeah.
in a
Yeah.
lot of ways,
Yeah.
um, and parts of Australia or whatever it is, that would be just incredible because there's probably so many people that are like you. I mean, that that's an idea of a vacation, as an
Oh yeah.
adventure.
That's it. Yeah.
Like I always
It's like
need.
go on.
No, I was just saying I always need a vacation from my vacation because my vacation is
Yeah.
like ready, set,
Yeah.
go. Let's go.
I'm exactly the same. I mean, my vacation idea of vacation is coming down to Wales and spending a week spearfishing. But by the end of it, I am usually more tired than I was, when I came down, because I will think, right, where's the most difficult place to get to? There's bound if it's hard to yomp to, carrying all your gear, it's going to be even harder coming up with, carrying a PB Pollock or whatever it is in your bag as well. But I always think it's worth it. But yeah, I mean, in Scotland, imagine rowing around the Scottish Isles. Uh, not only do you get to see the coastline of the beautiful Scottish Isles, but you get to dive for your dinner and do the spearfishing thing that you love as well. And it's just a bit more extreme, isn't it? I guess it'd just be like going on let's say on a hunting holiday, but on a boat. I think we struggle for wild camping in Britain and the coastline and stuff. It is getting more and more difficult to do that. I think a lot of the laws and things that sort of closing a lot of that off just because of landowners and things like that. But if you're on a boat and that's your home, that's HQ, where do you want to go? What do you want to do? And off you go. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it'd be incredible. All those like just coves, inlets, just pull the
Yeah.
boat right up to the beach, spend the night, shoot some stuff, like cook dinner right there, or whatever it is. I
Yeah.
mean, that like it's
Couple
almost
of
like the ultimate
beers.
survival, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
And I think it's funny as it is, there's so many people that would probably be into that. Like I know I
I
would be one
know.
of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, just be like,
Exactly.
let's
Yeah.
do it. Like
Yeah.
I don't want a yacht. I don't need
No.
that. Like I want just straight minimal. Let's do it. Like
Yeah. It's
that's
just
fun.
like you say, it takes you out of your comfort zone, and it's something that's just a bit more extreme. But I think you'll get a lot out of it. There's a lot of lessons to learn, um, about yourself, about rowing, and like I say, I'm not just going to expect guys to tip up and jump on the oars and start rowing. There's a lot more to it than that, in terms of uh, get
Training.
to learn, learn a new sport, have something to train for. Um, if put together a team of lads, a couple of spearos that you think, oh, we'd love to get together and do this, and make an adventure out of it. Yeah. So Adventures per Mare, the company, the Royal Marines motto is per mare per terram, which is Latin for by sea by land. And so Adventures per Mare is literally what it says, just adventure by sea.
Nice. Have you
Good little
had much
tagline.
interest in it?
Yeah, yeah. It's. I think initially I wanted to wait quite a few years until I'd sort of built this thing up, and I put together certain packages and things like that. But actually, I've quite enjoyed sharing the journey of what possibilities it might bring, and having people like yourself and other people having input. Going, have you thought about doing this? Have you thought about doing that? And just to grow it. Like I said, there's nobody else doing it, so I can grow it as I see fit and change it to how other people think might work for them. But yeah, I'm still in the sort of initial stages, and although the interest is there, it's difficult because I'm refurbishing the boat currently, so it's not physically ready. But again, that's something else that I'm sharing. The journey of refurbishing this ocean rowing boat to getting it on the water and then getting out this. I've got so many guys who are going to come out with me initially, likes of Jack Metcalf, he's quite prevalent in Wales sort of spearfishing environment. I'd love to get whoever, Daniel Mann, whoever wants to come out for a spear and row, and then we'll get it done, and then just get the interest sort of and the buzz about it, and start offering it up.
Yeah, Daniel might be game for it. He's always up for a good adventure. I mean, Norway, spearfishing, and everything
Oh
else.
yeah, I mean we could row over to Norway, no problem. Row over to Norway, get a big halibut, and row back.
See,
that might be a
that's what
bit
I'm
too
talking.
extreme.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. That'd be like
Yeah.
sneak in, hit it,
Yeah,
sneak
well,
out.
that's what.
Yeah.
Yeah, to be honest, I've thought about that because the Norwegians, the Vikings, they used to do that a lot to us. So I think maybe we should start rowing over there and pillaging some fish off them.
Payback. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah, I mean, there's another guy, Sam, that always does Sam I forgot his last name, jeez. But he's always doing the wet mammal. He's always doing the
Oh
hiking.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
He's like another guy
yeah.
that
That
like
looks
down in that
awesome.
yeah, in
Oh,
that area.
he'd be up for it. I was watching his video the other day of him yomping about, chucking it down rain, and I'm like, yeah, this guy needs to get on this ocean rowing boat with me, and we're going for a proper adventure.
Yeah, I mean, I just think of those guys yeah, Ollie and Sam and those guys would be like right up, and they're successful, and I think they're successful because that so many people can relate or
Yeah,
want that aspect. That's the
yeah,
whole point of diving, is go out and getting away. And then like for me, I'm always
right.
like, oh, I want to go farther and further and farther than anybody to get, because
Yeah,
I know there's got to be like bigger fish over here, more
yeah,
fish or whatever it is. Like,
yeah,
even though half time you get there, it's like everybody's already been there. But regardless,
yeah,
you know, it's like your trip, your journey to that
yeah,
spot.
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
um, wow. So what's the website for your? It's just Adventure
So
Premier.
so it's adventurespermare.co.uk. Yeah, per P-E-R, mare, M-A-R-E. Yeah, adventurespermare.co.uk. That's it.
Okay.
Everything's on there. In fact, if anybody wanted to see anything about the Row with Row for Victory, we had an absolutely amazing media campaign. We had James Corden gave us a shout out when we were mid-Atlantic. We had the Prince of Bhutan sent us a message. It just went mental. But we've got all these little clips. I've stuck all them on the website. It's like the sort of before the row, during the row, and after the row. All the interviews we did with the BBC and stuff like that. That's all on there. Yeah, really cool. I mean, and the legacy it's left and how it's changed my life is huge in terms of my children got to witness it. Their whole schools, they stopped doing what they were doing. They watched me cross the finish line, and it's now 5 years later since 2019, and I'm still talking about it, and it amazes me, like when you say, oh, row 3,000 miles, it's like, oh yeah, well there's people doing that now, and but it's cool to sort of revisit that experience and share it again, to new and enthusiastic questions, and yeah, it's really cool. What a legacy.
I mean, I literally have about 100 more questions, and we could talk. We could talk about
Yeah,
that for 2 hours, but this is a
yeah,
spearfishing podcast.
I know, yeah.
But
Well, I
it's
think like
fascinating.
all the other podcasts I've done, I think what they have said is like when you do get these packages up and running, and you go out there on your first expeditions, things like that, get you back on, and we'll have a chat about what we did and how we found, because I can imagine there's a lot of logistics, and you've obviously got to have enough energy at the end of your row to be able to go spear and dive and stuff like that, as well as just all those other questions that you think, how does spearfishing and rowing come together, well or not, so yeah, we'll have to do this again.
Yeah, I would think like whatever, however long you think it's going to take, just double it so that you can
Yeah,
take your sweet time
that's it.
and
Yeah,
spend time in the water as well as on top of it,
that's
so
it.
that
Yeah, definitely.
yeah.
It's a bit
And
like, it goes back to that the Commando test with the speed march. Yeah, you need to be able to run 9 miles in 90 minutes with all your kit, but you still need to be able to fight a battle at the end of it.
right.
So I think if I take that mindset with obviously the capabilities of the crew and work around that, and we should be good.
Yeah, and just plan timeline and then allowing for contingencies like the weather, especially up
Oh
there.
yeah, yeah. I
Um,
know.
but
I
it
have to
would
go. I
take
have to
a
move to Hawaii.
off. It's always windy in Hawaii. That's the
Is
only thing
it?
about wind. Yeah,
Oh,
but I mean, yeah, that would be that'd be incredible. Very cool. Well, thank you so much, Glenn, for
welcome. Been
making an
great to chat.
effort to link up with me and being
No, I
patient.
appreciate it. I'm so glad. Like say, I've the people who I've emailed just thinking, is this worthy chat for a podcast? And I think, like you say, there's only so many times you can talk about spearing a fish, but when you start chatting to people who are into spearfishing, but like from a different angle and have had different experiences, it makes for a great podcast. So thanks for having me on.
Is truly my pleasure. I'm fascinated by that. I think I know what drives you a little bit, but it's just fascinating to see someone that's like, yeah, let's do it. And then
Yeah,
your kids are going to have that, what a great example for your kids to say like, hey, my
yeah,
dad put his mind to something and then did it. And then
sure.
here it is documented now.
Yeah,
And
exactly. Yeah, that's
what
another
a,
thing about the modern world we live in. Everything's documented, and the lessons are there to see physically, aren't they? So, yeah,
yeah, very cool. Is there
yeah.
anything else? I'm going to give you the last word. Is there anything else that you'd like to say, or give a shout out to, or anything at all that you'd like the people that are listening to know or address?
No, again, like you said, just if anybody wants to find out any more, just check me out on. I think Instagram's probably the best one. Adventures per mare, and yeah, or through the website, or whatever. And just if anyone wants to find out any more, get in touch, and yeah, watch this space.
Awesome. Thank you again, Glenn. Incredible story, and I'm looking forward. The story's not over yet. I'm looking
No, it's
forward to
just
seeing.
this is the first chapter.
Yes, buddy. I'm looking forward to seeing more of it for sure.
Cheers, Brett.